In this 10 o'clock hour, let us go right to it. I have in studio with me a young man who is a graduating senior from Howard University. His name is Donny Bravo Brown. Donny Bravo, welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
What's up, Brock?
Also, I have online, if I'm hearing correctly, I have Paul Porter from Rap Rehab and Industry Heirs. And Paul, I will let you in just a moment describe what Rap Rehab and Industry Heirs is. And I also have Paul Billings, who is the owner of WUVS. Is Paul Billings on the line with us? Paul Billings from WUVS 103.7 The Beat in Muskegon, Michigan. If he's not there, he will be on the line in just a moment. And this discussion, it really was spurred by some very answer that, please. This is live radio. This is what we need to do on live radio. This discussion was spurred. Let's start where it really started, and that was back in February. Video was leaked of Lil Wayne's that had Lil Wayne talking about beating the private parts of a female the way that Emmett Till was beaten. I don't know if it gets any more vulgar or disrespectful than that. That was in February. In March, come the lyrics from Rick Ross and another rapper, hip-hop artist named Rocco, that says, the song is called You Don't Even Know, if I'm saying that properly. Donny, you might be able to help me out with that in a minute, but you don't even know.
Pretty close.
You ain't know. You ain't know. You don't even know. And Rick Ross, the one of the humongous belly and even bigger breastises, talks about putting a Molly in a lady's champagne and she ain't know. And then he talks about going home and enjoying her and she know. So what he's talking about, in no uncertain terms, is something extraordinarily vile, and that is rape. And this gentleman in Paul Billings with WUVS in Muskegon, Michigan, decided to pull all of the music from the radio station that he owns of Lil Wayne and Rick Ross. And there was a petition started by Paul Porter, who I know for certain is on the line. Do we have Paul Billings on the line yet?
He's waiting for you to call him.
Okay. Can we please get Paul Billings on the line? This petition, I'm going to run through it quickly. In 2012, a drug named Molly, made up of pure MDMA, ecstasy's active ingredient, flooded the music industry, made its way into countless rap lyrics. Last month, February 2013, Lil Wayne sparked national outrage when he disrespected the memory of slain civil rights martyr Emmett Till in his lyrics by comparing his brutal beating to a sex act. This month, rapper Rick Ross stirred natural controversy as a result of lyrics that encouraged drugging a woman to force her into sex. Mainstream rap has been suffering from repulsive content for a long time, but this latest wave of filth is our breaking point. We have hit rock bottom. That was written by Paul Porter. Paul Porter, what makes this rock bottom and different from many of the lyrics of the past?
Well, look, we've been stuck in a generation now for the last 10, 15 years of hate, drugs, misogyny, violence, bling, everything that is wrong. I believe it's part of our story sometimes, but it's not the whole story. There is just a crazy imbalance of what young kids are digesting through music. But in this case, here, and it's been happening, the drug Molly has been on numerous records in hip-hop over the past year and a half, from 2 Chainz to so many artists. But when you tie the drug in with the act of date rape, there's not too much more that can happen. This radio, that song is playing, the Rocco song is playing on about 30 radio stations across the country. So, yeah, we got a huge problem. And we've stepped down to, beating women and violence and date rape.
Hello?
So I just time that everybody stands up. And this isn't only about Rick Ross. This is about, putting the folks that greenlight these projects in check. Go ahead.
Paul, I know you know all about live radio. Hold on just a moment. Do we have Paul Billings on the line? Oh, hello? Okay, so we don't have him. I'm sorry, Paul. If you please continue.
Okay. Well, this is, putting the responsible people, going after Rick Ross is like hitting the toes. We never talk about the people that greenlight the projects. We never get to the broadcasters that play these records, and they're just as important. And matter of fact, more important, we don't talk about, the heads of record labels that really profit off of this, because once you phase out Rick Ross, then it's going to be somebody else next month. It was Lil Wayne, then it's Trinidad Chains, and it's 2 Chainz. But we got to put in a system, and that's what the petition calls for, too. If you go to raprehab.com, you'll see the petition. There's a long list of broadcasters and record label execs that it's sent to every time you fill out the petition. And we want to put pressure and bring them into the spotlight, too.
Donny Bravo, a young, aspiring rap artist, graduating senior from Howard University. The mecca, some folks say the mecca of black education. I say the mecca of education.
Oh, yeah.
Period. Where are you on this subject? Let me not put any words in your mouth, just ask you, where are you on this matter?
All right. Honestly, I want to say, first of all, I don't condone any of those lyrics. I listen to Lil Wayne, I listen to Rick Ross, but I listen to them, and I take everything they say with a grain of salt. Like, I don't believe any of this. I'm not influenced by any of it. I do agree that as a community, like, I think that we wait for shock factors and wait for these rappers to say things and jump all over them, and excuse me. And I think that it reflects a larger problem, and I'm glad Paul referenced it. It's because we have a habit, I think, of jumping all over these artists, but the artist doesn't matter. You can place artist A, B, C, D in that gap, and to make those millions of dollars, they'll talk about whatever. To be honest, the songs, you didn't even know it. Rick Ross probably didn't even write that line, and he didn't even know it. Like, he's just saying whatever he's saying to continue his career. So, like, I think that he's part of the problem, but I think the deeper problem is what Paul referenced earlier.
Now, you say as a Howard University educated person, someone who's had very strong influence from a mother and a father, and has the good sense of making good choices,
right?
That you weren't influenced by it,
right?
But I don't think that you would suggest that maybe the lyrics that come from some of these songs and the filth that comes from some of that music is not influencing young kids in the community.
Yes, I wouldn't argue that it's not, and I disagree. Like, when I heard that song, my reaction was like, whoa, like, what is he talking about? But this is coming from a guy who, like I said earlier, like, I've done my research. Like, when I listened to Rick Ross in high school when he first blew up, and it was all about hustle this, hustle that, and he was promoting this, basically a drug dealer image. Come to find out years later that he worked as a correctional officer, and then when people found out about it and he was asked about it, he lied about it. So they don't really have my trust. I don't listen to what they say at that level, but I will agree that it does influence our community, the youth in our community, in a negative way. But I also believe that it's up to so much more than just the rappers. Like, we have a habit of jumping on the rappers when, like Paul said earlier, there's an entire system that was put in place. I don't know if you read the article that came out recently this week. It was all over Facebook, all over the internet. It was entitled "The Secret Meeting That Destroyed Hip Hop in a Generation."
Well, we want to get to that.
Okay.
We definitely want to get to that. We do have Paul Billings on the line now, the owner of WUVS 103.7, The Beat in Muskegon, Michigan. Some business people would say, Paul Billings, have you lost your mind? This is the kind of music that these kids are buying. Why in the world would you pull off, take out of rotation Lil Wayne and Rick Ross when that's some of what the kids want to listen to? Welcome to the Rock Newman Show, and how do you respond?
Yes, it's an honor to be on your show, Mr. Rock Newman. I would say to them, historically, we have always maintained one of the top ratings in the market, in spite of staying away of the traditional mainstream songs that might have disrespectful lyrics and degrading content of our culture. So we have always tried to be different and have been able to maintain that presence and maintain that influence in spite of staying away from songs that beats away at the deterioration of our community.
Let me bring up something that we haven't mentioned here so far, and this I'll bring up something that someone that I love and am in love with equally. My wife loves her and is in love with her also, and that is Beyonce. And I saw it posted on Facebook when I first heard about it. It was "Bitches Bow Down," and I thought that was some sort of, again, another Facebook hoax. And as I understand it, it's not a hoax. It is something that is real. So, Paul Billings, when you talk about removing disrespectful lyrics and songs, is that one that you would refrain from playing also?
Oh yeah, that is new to me because I don't know if it came out as a single yet, so I'm probably not aware of the song. I'd be shocked if that is a song that is that's definitely going against what we would call good radio, family radio, and in no way will it be able to make the song. Even if she got some kind of meaning in that song, it just the sound of it sounds bad.
Okay, I can't believe that we're already up on the mark where we have to take a break. My name is Rock Newman. This is the Rock Newman Show. This is We Act Radio. Don't touch your dial. Don't touch your computer. We'll be back with more stimulating talk radio right here on the Rock Newman Show. Welcome back. We want to jump right in here because we have a very action-packed, full, information-packed hour at the Rock Newman Show. I want to give you the number to call in. We have one line open. The number to call is 202-889-9797. We have online from New York City, Rosa Clemente, and she wants to jump in on this conversation. Miss Clemente, thank you for calling the Rock Newman Show.
Well, hi. I don't want to jump in as much as I've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm a hip-hop activist and feminist. In 2008, I also ran on the Green Party ticket with Cynthia McKinney. So first and foremost, thank you for having this show, and secondly, Paul Porter, who's on, is really like one of my mentors in understanding what I call the rap industrial complex versus hip-hop culture. And I think that's how we have to see it. So on Monday, when I heard this lyric, I put out a YouTube response to Rick Ross. Many of us have been doing this work for decades. Okay, I mean, going against the industry of rap music for a very, very long time. And I responded because that's what I do as an organizer and an activist. And in less than 5 days, that response has had 10,000 views. And within a week, we have 3 different petitions dealing with different elements of what could be, I think, a big blow, again, to the rap industrial complex.
Please do me a favor. Please do me a favor. You say rap industrial complex versus the hip-hop culture. Tell us what you see as the difference.
Well, to me, hip-hop culture comes out of where I was born in 1972, the South Bronx, young black and Latino young people who have been devastated by an economic crisis, whose schools were closing down, right? Like some of the same issues we're facing 40 years later. So for me, hip-hop culture is comprised of 5 elements. The MC, which is the rapper, well, the MC, the crowd motivator, but that the industry has coined the rapper, the recorded artist who performs for anything or any money, you know, the b-boy, b-girl, the DJ, graffiti culture, and the 5th element, which a lot of us also reside in, knowledge, culture, and politics, given to us by Zulu Nation and Africa Bambaataa. That's hip-hop culture. So when I'm talking about the rap industrial complex, I'm talking about what Paul Porter and folks like Davey D have been talking about for 20 years. The industry and the system that pays particularly young black and brown men to say the nastiest, most denigrating things about who we are as a people, because in capitalism, the denigration of our humanity is what's selling. But why this Rick Ross thing has touched a nerve is because he is advocating date rape. And any artist who's a true artist and says that he did not write that line, he did not know what he was doing, is fooling themselves. Rick Ross is not 18 years old. He's a 40-year-old man.
Okay, Ms. Clemente,
let me just say this, just because I'm the only sister with y'all right now, and really, like, brothers have been stepping up. But let me just give you this statistic. The reason this is resonating is not only because he's advocating date rape and drugging a woman immediately after what happened in Steubenville, but that by the time African American and Latino women in this country are 18, 44% of us have been sexually violated or assaulted. And
that's an astounding
the idea
number.
that rape culture is prevalent in this society, but that particularly black and brown women continue to suffer against this assault, that 44% of us by the time we're 18 have been sexually assaulted, is a travesty and it's inhumane. And I won't allow, and many of us, millions of us around the world who love hip-hop culture are saying and standing up that Rick Ross and people like Rick Ross and rappers like him do not represent what hip-hop culture is about at all. They're getting paid by white men to put this music out, and they don't care about us, and we have to stand up against that.
Okay, that is absolutely the voice of seasoning and of reason. Donny Bravo, your response.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, that's what I was going to tell you about. The article basically referred to a time back in, I think, 89 or around 1990. And if anybody recalls, before that period, hip-hop didn't really have a lot of that element. I'm a student of the culture.
When you say that element, are you
that element of
gangster
everything, including violence, the drugs, you know, the denigration of the women, a lot of the misogynistic stuff was actually a planned influence. There was a meeting where they had a lot of the influential people in the industry, and there were actually also prison investors, you know, people who invested in private prisons who had linked up with the heads of these labels and some of the more influential people at these labels, and they came up with the plan to basically shift the focus of the industry based on numbers that they saw where it was numbers increasing of black men being arrested, black men being incarcerated, involved with drugs and crimes and what have you. So they saw the numbers going up, and they said, okay, this is what we'll do. We're going to consciously make this the direction.
Let me ask Paul Porter. I want to ask you, that sounds like something that would be fair to be characterized as urban legend. Now, you're saying it's a rumor. You and Ms. Clemente, who both have been dealing with this matter for more than 20 years, do you think that meeting actually happened? Or
no, I seriously doubt it. But what we have is that rumor has connected those dots.
Right.
You know, in reality, the system that is set up is not for us. The music is not for us, and it's affecting generation after generation. And for folks to say that the music has no influence, well, why do folks spend millions and billions of dollars in advertising that surrounds the music? Because it influences you to buy product. You know, music has always been special to me. I learned a lot through records. Luckily, I had balance. You know, when I was 8 years old, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, made me say I'm proud to be black, because black was a scary color for me. You know, I didn't want to be black. But James Brown gave me that power. And unfortunately, the younger generations that are into the commercial world, they don't have any songs of uplift. They don't have any real stories, because these stories that are put out are lyrics, because these guys ain't no gangsters. Rick Ross's response was as soft as tissue paper.
He's responsible for locking up the same people that did the crimes that he's advocating, right? Like, and what Paul is saying about the meeting, I think he's correct. I don't think there was a meeting where cats got together, but let me say that with the work that we did in New York against Hot 97 in 2005, because they released a song making fun of the tsunami, as well as my time managing groups like Dead Prez and other hip-hop groups, I've been in the program director's office at Emmett's Communications, where they have told us Talib, Dead Prez, Tony Blackman, all these other artists that are out there that never get played, we're not going to put them on air because that's not what people want to hear. Well, people don't want to hear it because you don't put it on air. You don't put them in rotation. And secondly, I'm sorry. I just.
Well, while you're thinking, while you're collecting your thought, I want to interject this. It seems to me, Donny, the meeting that you're talking about, that people talked about taking place, whether that meeting took place or not, this reminds me of the Willie Lynch letter.
Yeah.
And we all, I think, know about the Willie Lynch letter. In the event, I don't know whether the Willie Lynch letter was actually penned by Willie Lynch or not.
But it was.
But the impact and the effect.
Exactly.
And the instructions of the Willie Lynch letter, which talked about dividing the slaves by skin color, dividing the slaves by education level, but from separating the house slave from the field slave, and the impact that would have on generations for hundreds of years to come, whether he penned that letter or not, the impact and the effect of it is very real.
Exactly.
So whether or not the meeting happened in New York between all of the heads of all of the labels and the radio stations and anybody else, whether that happened or not, playing, in my estimation, this kind of music is contributing to the detriment of our communities, from children that are being influenced, that don't have the kind of parenting that you had, Donny Bravo, that don't have the kind of balance and the musical impact of Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, or even some of the music from Tupac back in his day.
Right, and that's what I mean when I say, like, when I talk about balance, because like when Paul was saying, when he was young, he had a different influence in music that was somewhat social. It's all about what's made to be cool. Like, and back in that generation, being socially responsible or having a socially conscious was in. Like, and what I'm saying is, what, like you said, whether that meeting happened or not, now what's in is to be totally something different. It's being gangster. It's selling drugs. It's what's made to be cool. And I think it falls back on especially the people of color who are highest up in the industry, the Jay-Z's, the P. Diddy's, the Russell Simmons. There's a select few of them, and I feel like
not up to them though, brother. That's what I'm saying. We have to stop caring.
But see, but they set the trends. They make. You know
why? Because look at what Jay-Z's wife, like the brother was just saying earlier. So here's Beyonce.
So she can't make a song with any curse word in it?
You're Beyonce. You don't have to do that. You're making.
She wants to do it though.
Nobody's telling you, Beyonce, this amazing artist, Jay-Z, Puff Daddy, this is what you have to rhyme about. Let me just say, there's a story Billboard just posted that's saying that now Kanye West and Kendrick Lamar are about to get on this record with Rick Ross. And here we go again, right? So here we have top-notch artists who break every barrier, who are making a choice to get on a record that is advocating the rape of women. So to me, it's about artists like you, brother. What choice the choices that you're obviously going to make are going to be different.
Right, but see, I'm an artist. I'm not Lil Wayne, though.
Pop culture is about making money or blowing up. We have millions of artists in this country. You got one right in D.C., 20 years, Heady, Head Rock, mad artists from the DMV area that will never get on the radio. And what we need to instill in people in the culture is F the radio. F them. It's about the people. It's about how.
Right, but whether we want to accept it or not, the radio has the influence. They have the ears and the listeners.
Rosa.
You can't say F the radio.
I want to go back.
I mean mainstream radio, not the radio that we're on now. The radio we're on now is the radio we need. I don't care about Emmett or Clear Channel. These are white people making money.
But they have
Rosa, I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment. Rosa, I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment. Let's go back for a minute. You were making the point that Beyonce has a right to say bow down bitches.
Yes, if that's what she wants to do. I don't manage.
And we have a right to hold her accountable for that.
But when you say hold her accountable, the only thing you can do is not listen.
Okay, now hold on. Paul Billings.
Yeah.
Rosa said hold her accountable. Donny said the only thing we can do is not listen. And is it your position that a radio station owner with a social consciousness, that is your obligation to the community that you serve to actually not play the music?
Yeah, we that's our obligation, to screen and decide what we think is appropriate for our audience based on our mission. We're a mission-driven radio station, so we're different from the corporate radio stations. We tie a mentorship program. We actually have a record label for the youth that talks about knowledge of self and self-determination. So the music that we program, and we program hip-hop, but it will not be music that is detrimental into the deterioration of our community.
How do you respond? How do you respond that you're a first-rate censor? That you're practicing censorship that is denying artists the free right to expression? The artists have the right to produce music, and we have a right and authority to play what we feel is appropriate. So we're not censoring their music. We just playing to what we feel is good for our audience based on our mission. And so we both have those rights, and they have the right to make their music, but we also have a recourse to protest what the activists are doing. As a program director, I have a right to decide which song I'm going to put on. Otherwise, I could have 1,000 songs rotating. So we gotta decide what song we feel is appropriate for our audience. Okay, and unfortunately, I have to make the decision to pause right now for a few of our messages. Man, this is hot, and I love it. And we'll be back in just a moment on the Rock Newman Show at WEAC Radio, 1480 AM, and you can see us all around the world at www.rocknewmanshow.com. Welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. We want to jump right back into this subject matter. It was getting hot and heavy. We do now have one line open. I know that you've been calling. Actually, we've been getting calls from Detroit, Hawaii. We even got a call from Norway. Thank you so much, those of you that are watching around the world on watching us via www.rocknewmanshow.com and listening on 1480. Paul Porter, I want to come back to you. What has been the impact and the effect of your petition? How many people have signed on, and what kind of response have you been getting?
Well, the response is pretty slow. You know, the funny thing, when I posted the story about Paul Billings Station 103-7 The Beat on raprehab.com, it got over 9,000 likes in less than 24 hours. It busted down the server. So, folks, a lot of time, we're not into signing petitions because we think it's connected to child support or some other problem, but I think there's close to 1,500 signatures now, and we need more. So sign on, log on to the website, and sign the petition, because and read what the petition is about, because we want to see. I'm really into putting the pressure and taking back that commercial radio space. And
what does that mean? What does that mean, taking back that commercial radio space?
The artist that Rosa said should be on the air. Look, there's probably the most popular rapper independent rapper who financially is selling records, going around the country doing tours, won a Grammy, is a guy named Lecrae. And they call it holy hip-hop, but all it is positive music in his rap. But he's labeled as a Christian, so he can't be on commercial radio stations in the U.S. He toured 150 dates last year around the world, but he can't get airplay in Atlanta. He won a Grammy. He sold a couple of 100,000 CDs independently on his own. So that's the problem with commercial radio.
So, Paul, let me ask you a question. Do you think that every rapper and every artist should be socially conscious?
No, I call for balance. You know, I think some of our stories, or, you know, one of my favorite records of all time was Gil Scott-Heron in the Bottle, and he's the original rapper. But I think that story is socially conscious, and it also isn't, you know, it's uplifting in another type way. But no, I don't think that, you know, we're going to get a perfect world. But right now, the balance is all negative, and it's not happening. Folks aren't buying it. Folks aren't listening to it, even though it's being drilled into their heads.
And I think a lot of women, you know, see, to me, Paul knows I totally respect all the work he's doing. Like I said, he mentored me in understanding. But for me, the business of commercial radio is dying, just like mainstream TV is dying. And I think that's why I was blown away. Look, my YouTube video response just cost 10,000 views. I've been an organizer for 15 years and have never gotten a response like this. Maybe, obviously, when I was running for office. But for a lot of us women in the culture who are half, if not more, of hip-hop culture, are really honing in on what this lyric and this overall culture happens to be, rape culture, right? So for a lot of us, look, holding people accountable is important. It's what we do as folks of color. And artists can be artists, right? But like Paul Robeson said, artists do have responsibility. My thing is that to get on Rick Ross and these artists is part of the accountability factor that we do as organizers, and we're never going to stop that. But the bigger picture is this idea of what is happening to women and how increasingly in this country in the last 3 to 5 years, this rape culture is so pervasive, not only in music, in everything we see. And when Rick Ross chose to rhyme about that, we who love hip-hop, especially hip-hop feminists who get so marginalized in this space, hip-hop women, you know, are saying, no, this is, you know, we fought against Too Short 18 months ago, and we're going to fight against artists who think that they can get away with doing this without a response. You know, and I congratulate Mr. Billings for being, to me, Mr. Billings is not choosing to censor. I think that all these commercial radio stations are choosing to censor when they don't put artists that can be that balance. And Mr. Billings is one of the few program directors or managers in the entire country that have the guts to say, this has crossed the line. You cannot talk about Emmett Till like this, and you cannot talk about women like this, and we're making that choice.
Rosa, you may
these whack rappers all the time.
You may or may not know that there has been a petition now that has been started, which is as of last evening. It had 51,000 signatures.
Ultraviolet.org. Yeah, we have a web on Facebook. We have It's Bigger Than Rick Ross, where we decided there's so many people doing good work, let's have one space. So the Facebook page, it's Bigger Than Rick Ross. So in 1 minute, you can go to Rap Rehab. Ultraviolet.org has 50,000 signatures urging Reebok, which is about 20 miles from where I'm at currently. I live in Amherst, Massachusetts. I'm getting my doctorate in Black Studies. In Canton, Massachusetts is the headquarters for Reebok. And that petition was started by a young feminist organization that said, well, we want to target this. So there's like 3 petitions going around. There's the YouTube piece, and now what we've been asking as, especially women in the game, right? And I'm passionate about this because I know there are hundreds of brothers, millions of brothers who have in their lives a woman that's been sexually assaulted, whether you know or not. But we've asked the men particularly the rappers in this industry who call themselves conscious, who say that they're revolutionary, that the men need to stand up against this as well. It cannot always be the work of the women to fight against this increasing violence, and misogyny.
Yeah, I want to give Donny a moment to make a point, and then Rosa, I want to come back to you on something.
This reflects the larger point that I was talking about earlier, which is, like, we wait to jump on these rappers as opposed to this being an issue in the community that we attack before Rick Ross has this line. Like, him having this line shouldn't be the thing that creates so much controversy. Like,
we've been doing this for 15 years.
No, I know you have, but I'm saying I'm talking about the artists. I'm talking about the artists.
It's incorrect.
Rosa, please let him make his point.
I'm talking about the artists specifically. It could be Rick Ross. It could be whoever. But until we go to the higher ups, these radio stations, these labels, it doesn't matter who the artist is that they put in that place, because it'll be that person doing it for those millions of dollars. And on top of that, we give these rappers too much power. Like, I don't think Rick Ross has the power to make rape cool. Even if like, that is where...
When you say we give him too much power, what do you mean?
We give him too much power with this lyric. Like, I don't think Rick Ross, as popular and as influential on kids as he may be, has the power to make rape something that's okay in our society. I don't think he has.
Well, you know what? There's been responses from over 500 high school students that are making a response to Rick Ross in this way. They're saying that his music has influenced them, and
to rape somebody.
And listen, these are kids. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about 15, 14-year-old kids. So it's not about that Rick Ross has the power. It's that we have to hold anyone accountable that tries to make rape.
But it'll keep happening if you don't hold the people accountable who can actually make some change.
We're doing that. See, this is what you're doing. Instead of really hearing what me and Paul and other folks are saying, I just told you that there's one petition with 50,000 people, a YouTube that has had 10,000 views, the petition that Paul has out, as well as other things. So we are doing things. So for you to say we're not holding this, we're hitting it at every level. And that's why the mainstream media in particular is picking it up, and radio stations are responding, because we're not just getting at Rick Ross. We're going at the giant of it, and Rick Ross is a symptom.
Rosa, time out, please. Because I have very important something that I'd like for you to share. No, I want to hear more from you, and I want to invite you back on as a guest, as Paul Porter, also Donny. You all can come back, because this is a very, very interesting, and it's a subject matter that needs to be dealt with. We need to do whatever we can, those that are socially conscious, to help. I think we have an obligation, those of us that have a voice, to try to root out some of this filth that is having an impact on terribly negative behavior in our community. Rosa, what I want you to do, because you've used this term several times, and I'd like for you in layman's terms to explain it as best you could, because you know what? I'm concerned that it just flies past people. And you say an emerging, we are upon a rape culture. Please explain that.
I mean, we've been in a rape culture. I think the statistics on rape in the United States of America are just overwhelming sometimes when I read these reports. And again, just imagine 44% of the women in your life, almost half, have been sexually assaulted or violated by the time they're 18. But what we've been seeing in the last, decade in this country, first the media subjugation of women, the sexualizing of women. It's not just, pop artists or the female rap artist that has to sexualize herself, but everything is about how we can sexualize our girls, how we can get them to wear G-strings at 6 years old that they sell at Walmart, to the pants that they make for girls, just like all these things that make a young girl, by the time she's 8, potential to, violation, potential to rape culture is not just a physical act, but it's the words, it's the imagery, it's what's said, it's what's valued. And we're seeing a lot of these cases coming out of high schools, like the Steubenville case, right? And part of rape culture is that the victim is then victimized. And how did that happen in Steubenville? Well, one only have to watch CNN the day of the verdict, when CNN talks about how the lives of the young boys were ruined, and not talked about how the victim is ruined for life. So, also, I think that because hip-hop culture has always been on the forefront of talking about societal issues, that when someone like a Rick Ross talks about date rape, that is pervasive of what rape culture is.
So then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and that young boy, see, this is the thing, that it's not about how our girls are dressing. It's not about how women dress. We've heard of cases where there are 75-year-old grandmothers who are raped in this country, right? It's about not necessarily, of course we teach young girls, and you have to teach young girls how to protect themselves in certain environments, but it's also this, right? It's also that we need to teach young boys how not to rape. That we need to teach young boys and young girls, when you're at a party and you've seen something that you know is going to cross the line, that's going to be a potential assault, that if you don't intervene in that as a group, as a crew of your boys or your girls, you're implicit.
See,
you're part of that
Rosa,
line and what you've done.
Rosa,
that's rape culture.
Hey, Paul Porter.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, as someone who has been so intricately involved, industry years, rap rehab, we need to wrap this up, unfortunately, because we are rapidly approaching the top of the hour. Where do we go from here?
I believe we're going at the head and not the toes. This whole conversation, we didn't mention Jimmy Iovine, we didn't mention Doug Morris, we didn't mention Jay Stevens up the street from you, who programs Radio 1 stations. We didn't mention Joey Mandia at Def Jam. Those are the people that have to have the heat and pressure. A couple of years ago, we did a study, the Rap on Rap. We had buses, Reverend Coates did Enough is Enough. 800-900 people were in front of Deborah Lee's $5 million home in Northwest. Well, guess what? Rap City got dropped. When you put the pressure at the neck, they react. And it takes big means and real pressure. A petition is one little thing, but we have to let them know by a show of force and raising our hands and our fists and locking arms together to make it happen. We can change this, but it's going to take going at the folks that keep greenlighting this stuff, coming into our community and raping us. It's physical rape and mental rape. These radio stations have endorsed Molly, the drug, on tens of songs and thousands of spins across the country, and the FCC won't say it. You got to stand up yourself.
And be the change that we want to see. That wraps this hour. What a
Thank
quick,
you so much
hot,
for having
fast
me.
one it was. We'll be back in a moment on The Rock Newman Show.
It's The Rock Newman Show.